This is Conversation of the Birds, a story set to music, new chapters released weekly, written, composed, and read by Jamie Holcomb. New challenges generate new solutions. Our flock is going to have to get creative. Some of our birds are hatching a plan. The heron, the cormorant, the kite, and the albatross flew together towards the back of the flock of pilgrims. They had much to discuss. Razor-beaked and furious, the cormorant had been fuming. The great blue heron had sat up through the night in contemplation of the hunting kite, and even when that well-fed raptor had returned to roost on the branch beside him, still that great blue harpooner had stewed in furious thought. Only the albatross seemed mild as that quartet of fighters flew together in their own conversation. "We," the heron began, "need to elect a leader." "Not the hoopoe?" asked the albatross. "We're soldiers," said the heron, "and them up there priests or poets or scholars or whatever you want to call it. They're on this fancy flight for a different reason than us." "Not to find the smirk?" asked the albatross. "Not to find the smirk," the heron agreed, "not anymore." This caught the cormorant's ear, and he turned his furious glare on the heron at his right. The razor-beaked cormorant whispered, listening. "The stork," said the heron, "was our leader. Us fighters, I mean. And I got a bone to pick. Yeah, that's right. I've got something to settle. See, us four, we're the true fighters. Including Al, sweet as he can be, you're a big bird of prey, aren't you? You're no penguin. You're no goose. You're one of us, battling our way through. I don't know about the rest of you," the heron went on, "but I've got a score to settle. There's a monster on our tail. Hole, that's what it calls itself, right? That's what I heard it screaming as it tore our flock to pieces. The rest of them may be chasing fairy tales, but I know for certain why I'm here." For the first time since the birds had sheltered in the cave mouth, the cormorant relaxed. "Yes," he whispered. The kite said nothing. He soared. He glared determination. Gently, the albatross nodded. "Us four," the heron said, "we're here for one reason, to fight." And each bird, the cormorant, the heron, the albatross, and the kite, in his own way, by his own furious instinct, each warrior determined for himself what he must do. They were united now in their purpose, to avenge the fallen, to bring down that awful monster, and to protect the flock in their quest. They would go to find the devil that screams but one word. "Hole," said the heron to himself. "Hole." While the fighters stewed on these ideas, at the front of the flock the hoopoe was getting to know the bats. The four assistants fluttered around the corners of the kingfisher's apparatus, ready to catch hold of that wooden wing should any sudden wind catch the dove at a bad angle. The four of them would be there to protect her. With Habernaniel fluttering at the head of their arrangement, the bats were prepared to anticipate any troublesome turbulence by keeping an eye on his bronze blaze. Indeed, in the sunlight, Habernaniel shone like a polished shield. The hoopoe, at the head of the flock, more or less, because physically now it was the vulture in the lead, using his big body to shield the smaller birds from the occasional rough wind. But still, that blackbird looked over his shoulder at the hoopoe and the ibis for cues. Our pink leader turned to the shining Habernaniel on his left and said, "Have you bats ever flown this side of the mountain?" "Indeed," the herald said, "we hunt all of the pine woods surrounding the ancestral mountain." "What can we expect ahead?" the hoopoe asked. "A treacherous landscape. Here there are many valleys rumbling between the peaks. The forests are dense and varied. I have not seen beyond them." "Then we're all in for a treat," the hoopoe said, and he winked. Turning now to his right, to the gliding ibis, the hoopoe said, "Could it be that all these turbulent ridges and rolls make up one?" But the ibis was already bobbing that dipping head in agreement. "All of it," the ibis indicated. "These undulations comprise the next valley." Indeed, the hills rose together so closely that as the flock angled upward to soar over the next green peak, they entered into a new perspective. The dense and tangled myrtles and pines, with the periodic spurts of rocketing bamboo, together they formed a whirling pattern of green and blue and darker hues. From above, the forest resembled the interlocking spirals of a great thumbprint. Rising higher still, the birds could perceive how the huge hills whirled together too. Patterns upon patterns, the ibis mused, and he knew they were headed in the correct direction, for the ibis could read these signs as if they were the etchings formed by the rolling water licking at the riverbed. Now once more a sharp wind blew over the birds. The vulture was able to break that blast, casting the air out along his broad black wings, but he cocked his skeletal head back and called, "Can't hold back forever." "Down," the hoopoe cried, and after that pink bullet the flock shot down into a growing mist. Vapor curled and swirled about, concealing the world before them. Myrtles bobbed, pines seemed to float, the hills broke forth as islands. Into that veiled world the birds descended to catch their bearings on a relatively clear peak. Huddled together on that sparse hilltop with the gray clouds swirling about them, the birds really were lost at sea. While the ibis scanned the swirls below them and the hoopoe looked to pierce the clouds above, all to regain their sense of direction, the heron went into action. He assigned to each of his generals a corner, the albatross to the front, the kite to the right, the cormorant to the left. For himself he took the rear guard, and it was at the back of the flock that he encountered the hummingbird. "What are you up to?" that blue bird asked him, and the heron explained his arrangement. The hummingbird, upon hearing what the soldiers had in mind, turned his head down in solemn contemplation. "You disagree with our direction?" asked the heron. "No," the little hummingbird said to himself. He looked up at that great fishing bird. Of tremendous height and brightly colored, what bird could brave the depths? Who else could wade beyond the shallows to catch the hidden giants? The heron stands above you, behold his awesome size, and stand clear of that furious beak, steel-piercing the sunlight. "I only wish," said the hummingbird, "that I was more like you. I couldn't protect the dove, I couldn't fight with the kingfishers, I'm a burden." "You," the heron said, "are a hummingbird." He nodded curtly to that little bluebird before turning on his heel. Facing the mists behind the flock, the heron spread his great wings wide. The hummingbird saw him as a glorious shade, standing strong against the sunlight. The heron stood ready, wishing for the sudden crackle of black lightning. The heron longed for battle. He would give his life to save the flock, to bring down that jagged beast. All this the hummingbird could perceive by the posture of the heron. He hung his head to shuffle towards the center of the flock with the other small birds. Among these twittering fellows, the hummingbird came upon the crow and the parrot mid-conversation. "It's a paradox," the parrot squawked, "simply impossible." "What's the word?" said the hummingbird. The crow, somber and dark, that blackbird bent towards this blue student. "The smirk," he said, "do you believe we'll find it?" Before the hummingbird could answer, the parrot said, "It is impossible, illogical. How could the transcendent be immanent? The properties of those domains of categorization are mutually exclusive." "That's what transcendent means," said the crow, smoldering, "to go beyond pairs of opposites." "Yes," said the hummingbird. "Oh," the macaw laughed, "we've got a budding novice in our midst. You agree with Master Crow?" "You asked me if I believed that we would find the smirk. My answer is yes." The parrot said, puffing out his chest. "So you've thought these matters through. You've reconciled such troublesome conflicts as the empirical and the sensible, the knowable against that which is given a priori?" "Okay," said the hummingbird, and he shuffled off. The crow said, "You didn't need to be so rough." "Well, I actually would like to understand," said the parrot. "And this take it on faith, face value nonsense seems antithetical to our quest. If you already believe in it, why would you need to seek proof? Take it on faith and leave it at that." All this the hummingbird heard over his shoulder. Still, he was not entirely sure what those birds were arguing about or what he had done to offend them so badly. I wonder how many of you have ever encountered a hummingbird. Like that, sapphire, emerald, they flash before you, hovering for an instant before they vanish. With wings beating so swiftly that they disappear, one wonders about the activity of such a bird's heart. They say that if you see a hummingbird land, it is a blessing. The bird trusts you. You must have the stillness of nature, the equipoise of a widening blossom. Sculpted by centuries of flowers and beaks, the hummingbird spreads the nectars and pollens of his dominion. He is the true warden of the flower bed. He is the keeper of the magnolia, the trumpet vine, and the bougainvillea. Without him, there could be no fruits. Contemplate that sudden messenger. His appearance is thrilling, his activity is delight. What heart could stand unmoved by that nimble dancer? While the birds regain their bearings, let us contemplate the hummingbird as he considers himself. Let the hoopoe and the ibis navigate the mists. Let the heron and his men guard the precious pilgrims. Let the crow confuse the parrot, or the parrot confuse the crow. And look upon that landed hummingbird, whose wings lie still at his sides as he wonders whether or not the love of life's rich nectars is really enough. This has been Conversation of the Birds, a story set to music, with new chapters released weekly. Written, composed, and read by Jamie Holcomb. Produced by Supermoon. Join us next week for our next installment. If you'd like to check out more from Supermoon, visit us on TikTok or at our website, gosupermoon.com. That's GOSUPERMOON.com. On a personal note, I'd like to acknowledge a great man who we lost this week. Charles Anthony Cuccaro was a source of encouragement and support to all of us here at Supermoon. Chuck, I wish you could have heard this one. I think you would have liked it. Ah, well. The quest continues. Next week.